Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, I'm happy to report I actually have a recap video to do this week. I actually took some trades, so it feels good to actually catch some opportunities again after missing so many over the last 2 weeks. So yeah, I'll just get straight into it, right? So, the trading week was okay. I had one loss, two break evens, and two winners. Well, yeah, two winners. One's still open. But yeah, it was a pretty good week. Obviously, I missed some opportunities as well, which I kind of highlighted. So I'll talk you guys through them. Um, but yeah, I'll get started on the first trade here. So a change that I've made to kind of help myself with my journaling. I decided to just name my strategies, right? So this main strategy, BARBAB, BARBAB. That's probably the trade I'll be taking the most, right? It just basically means here, break and retest, bread and butter, right? So it's just my bread and butter setup. So break and retest of a clear support and resistance level in a clearly trending market in the direction of the main trend. Rent, which doesn't happen very often, is kind of a, well, not kind of, it is a reversal kind of system, but it's targeted at hopefully finding the start of new trends, right? So it, needless to say, it doesn't set up very often. And I just have these little, instead of like typing out hidden divergence, regular divergence, trend line, all that stuff, I've just shortened them, right? So the first trade here was on odd JPY. It was taken on the 1 hour time frame. It was a long position. And it was, yeah, break and retest together with some hidden divergence, trend line, 50% fib, and I traded off of the H4 level. In hindsight, I rushed this trade. I should have been a bit more patient and done more analysis. The reason why I say that is because I traded off of the H4 level, which is okay for me for the most part. But the H4 level and the daily level need to be kind of in the same region, right? And I'll show you what I mean, right? So this was the trade here at the time that I entered. Cool. So we have, this was the kind of H4 level just here that I traded off of, right? Price pushed up, came back down, had that nice wick rejection together with this kind of trend line that was starting to be formed. We had some hidden divergence, which obviously isn't shown, but once I jump to the chart, I'll talk you guys through it. So yeah, so I took a position here. It was, the risk reward was a little bit off, obviously, because I wanted to cover that wick. But yeah, trade setup at the time seemed fine, right? And then this was the trade here at the time that I was stopped out. Cool. So yeah, price just broke through lower, and obviously took me out, right? And then came back up and started to test this area here, right? So yeah, I'll jump to the chart. I also mismanaged this trade as well, but yeah, I don't know. I'll talk you guys through why I could have done a little bit better with the management as well. All right, so odd JPY. So I actually took two trades on odd JPY this week. One was a loser, one was a break even. I'll go through the loser for now, and then I'll probably just jump to the break even straight after. So all right, so this was the trade I was talking about, right? So this is the first trade here that I entered, right? Entry came after the rejection, and then we had this bullish candle just here, which was my entry trigger. All right, so I entered on this candle just here, and this is my trading zone, right? So this zone just here, this is my trading zone, the zone at the top. And you can see if I jump to the 4 hour time frame, that's a pretty clearly defined zone on the H4, right? You have this resistance here, broke through impulsively, came back, rejected, and I took my entry, right? But if I jump to the daily time frame, you can see that that zone, I'll just zoom in a little bit, that zone on the H4 is just a wick on the daily time frame. The real zone that I should be trading off of is this zone beneath here, right? Which is why I took that second entry, which we'll talk through in a bit. But yeah, so the zone wasn't the best zone. It was okay. on the H4 time frame, but I didn't jump to the daily time frame to double check, which is a oversight on my part. So a little bit of a poor analysis there, but you know, the trade was okay. I mean, obviously it stopped out. Why I say I mismanaged the trade is because in part of my rule, if I'm trading off of a trend line, right? So I'm just connecting this low to this low and just pulling it into the future, right? So there you can see that's the confluence I got there, right? Trigger came on this bullish candle just here, right? So the trade from a technical perspective was okay at the time, but as I say, I got my zones kind of messed up, right? But I could have saved myself a full loss once I had that break and close beneath the trend line. So this candle here, if I didn't close on this candle here, I definitely should be closing off on this candle here. All right, and I didn't do that. And instead, obviously, I paid the price. Hopefully, I'll kind of learn my lessons moving forward and just, you know, do a little bit better. Right, and I did do a little bit better on this trade, right, which is the next trade I'll talk through here, right? So it's odd JPY, same pair, was taken on the 4-hour time frame, long position, is a break-even trade, same sort of setup, but this one was based off of the 50%, the 618 level rather than the 50% level, right? And this time, obviously, I learned from a mistake. I traded off of the daily level, not the H4 level. Trade was invalidated, and I trailed my stops to the lows, and then I closed off on break even. Right, so this was a trade here at the time of entry. Cool. So instead of that kind of shorter term 1-hour trend line that I just drew in, right, I was trading off of this channel here, right, which is a clearer channel, right? This is the clear 4-hour channel, right? Have my daily zone came in, price came down. It bounced, it started to reject, it tried to push higher, which I didn't really like, right? This is a kind of counter trend candle for me. And then, you know, I got my entry trigger just after that, right? Which is when I entered the trade. All right, and then this here was a trade at the time that I closed it off. Cool, so here you could see that the trade was invalidated, right? So same way this trade was invalidated, but I didn't close it off. This one was invalidated, right? And what I did was I moved my stop. So I don't immediately close the position off. I'll just move my stop to the low of the candle that invalidated the trade. And then, you know, hopefully it doesn't happen very often, but in this instance it did. The price pushed right back up to the entry. I think it was like 1 or 2 pips under the entry. But regardless, it was a break-even trade, right? So I was taken out here and break-even. All right, so I'll just jump to the chart to talk this one through. Okay, so odd JPY, right? So H4 time frame. Okay, so this is a channel here, right? So this is a channel we kind of spoke through. I could delete this one now. Spoke about that. Get rid of this trade. Get rid of this nonsense. All right, cool. So, all right, so this is the channel I was trading off of, and this is the zone I was trading off of just here. All right, so price came down. This wasn't a rejection candle for me. It obviously just came and it paused, but this doji, this doji right here, that's a clear rejection for me. At least in this instance, because of the confluences, right? We also have, I mean, I'll just pull a fib. I know I deleted it earlier, but it was a nice 618 fib. So the zone for me lined up nicely between the 50% and the 618. So that was pretty cool. So the doji kind of gave me my entry, not my entry reason, but the respect of the zone that I'd like to see. The second candle here, I didn't really like the formation on this candle, as I mentioned, but it was okay. The very next candle on the 1 hour time frame gave me my entry, right? So I was happy entering the trade because of the confluences that was happening at the time. And we had this nice impulsive move off the level, came back very correctively. So the trade looked okay to me, right? But then on the 1 hour time frame, so how I normally manage my positions, if a trade doesn't go, well, until a trade goes into profit at least 1 hour, I'll manage the trade as if it was a day trade, right? Because I obviously my trades are swings, right? They take some time to play out, but until it kind of pushes into profit, I'll kind of manage it like if it was a day trade, right? So in this instance here, I mean, I entered on, I think I entered on this bullish candle here. I can't remember the entry candle. I mean, it was obviously here at some point, right? But regardless, the candle that invalidated the trade for me came here, right? We had this big bearish candle that pushed very bearishly and closed beneath the trend line, closed beneath the zone, right? So that for me is my entry, my trigger to get out of the position. But like I said, I don't just close the position off. What I'll do is I'll trail my stops just in case price does want to kind of push back up, right? And sometimes it works out and it saves you from a full loss. And then this is one of those instances, right? So if we just zoom in here, you could see that it worked out quite nicely in this instance, right? So I trailed my stops to the low of this candle, and you could see here, price just, once this candle closed, price just pushed up, went all the way back to my entry. As I say, like 2 pips under my entry or something like that. And that's where I closed the trade off, right? So in this instance, it worked out quite nicely, but you know, it doesn't really work out very often. The trade, I mean, price went into my direction eventually, right? So, you know, price is kind of pushing up here. So I'll be looking for a re-entry at some point, maybe next week, right? So if we get price kind of coming back to kind of these highs somewhere around there, if there's a pullback lower, then I'll probably be looking for a re-entry, maybe confluence with the trend line, something like that. And so I'll be looking for something like that maybe next week, right? So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on it. All right, so moving on anyway. The next trade for me was on odd USD. It was taken on the 4-hour time frame. It was a long position. This was also a break-even trade. Very, very similar to the odd JPY trade, right? Baobab entry. It was based off a trend line and a 786 fib retracement, confluence of the channel support. Trade was invalidated. Trail stops to lows, closed on break-even. All right, so this was the trade here at the time that I entered. Also, got this nice channel being formed. Didn't really like the momentum into the channel, but I still got my entry confirmation, right? So anyway, so that's the trade. I was looking to trade off of these highs here, right? That was my analysis. I was hoping to see price come into these highs here and reject, but that never happened, right? We obviously just blew past the level and then pushed all the way down. But this was also kind of propelled by news at the time, right? So I was looking for some kind of recovery to happen here. And then this was the trade here at the time that I closed it off. So I think this one, yeah, this one worked out very, very similarly to odd JPY, right? So we had the invalidation candle come, actually, hang on. Yeah, so I think I cleaned up my trend line a little bit, and this was the invalidation candle here. This big bearish candle just here, that was the invalidation candle. And then obviously I trailed my stops here, price pushed higher, came back to my entry. That's where I closed the position off. So it worked out again in this instance. All right, so I'll just jump to the charts here, odd USD. All right, so odd USD, H4 time frame. Cool. So same kind of setup, right? There we go, right? So that's where I don't know. I have a different layout for analysis and a different layout for trading. This is obviously my trading layout. So this is kind of where I had my trend line drawn, just there. All right, so I updated it to kind of match the most recent wick, right? And that's, so the invalidation candle came once it broke this trend line, right? So anyway, so this was the trade setup here, right? So obviously we had this nice ascending channel again. Price kind of was consolidating last week. We had the breakout. I was looking to trade off of the retest of these highs here, but as I said, that didn't set up, right? It just broke through. It actually tested it as resistance and then dropped. And then once price kind of came to around this area, which was the 768 level, I don't really like the 768 level, but you know, I still got my entry confirmation at the level. So I took the trade. And then as I was saying, right, so I cleaned up the trend line. Once I did that, price broke beneath the trend line on this candle here, this bearish candle just here. So this bearish candle just here, that's where I trailed my stops, and again I got lucky. So price immediately immediately after the invalidation, I moved my stops. Once the candle closed, it pushed right back up to my entry level. So you know, I lucked out again on this trade. So yeah, doesn't happen very often. You know, these two could have been losses, but you know, it saved me from a full loss, right? So I was happy with how that worked out. So again, very similar to our JPY, we having that shift in structure. We also have that kind of miniature head and shoulders happening here, right? You have that shoulder, head, well, shoulder, head, and then this is your neck, shoulder, right? So you kind of have this as your neckline. So maybe next week, I don't know. That might be a nice setup there. I'll be keeping an eye on it to see if it does set up right, so something like that. But anyway, I'll do some more analysis on it tomorrow. All right, so moving on, CAD JPY. So this one was based on the 15-minute time frame, purely because I was just trying to catch a little piece of the that momentum CAD JPY was showing on the higher time frames, right? So anyway, so it's CAD JPY 15-minute time frame, long position, BABAB, right? So minor 15-minute trend line together with a 38.2 fib. Trade worked out nicely, closed after the news spike, didn't follow my trade management plan 100%, right? This was a trade here at the time that I entered. Cool. So we have obviously price on the in this kind of major uptrend, right? We had this minor area of consolidation. Price broke out, tested it once, tested it twice, had this nice bullish engulfing candle, which was my entry trigger in this instance. Didn't really have a hard take profit for this one. I was just kind of looking to catch some momentum, right? So that was the trade at the time that I entered, and this was the trade here at the time that I closed it off. So we had, right, so we had some news come out straight away, and price just shot directly into profit. And once we had this big bullish candle, I just decided to close the trade off, right? I didn't follow my trade management rules here because I should be waiting for an exit signal to get out the trade. But yeah, more often than not, when a massive news spike like this happens, you tend to get some kind of retracement. So I was just happy with the profits, together with obviously my week wasn't really going that well, right? I had 1 loss and 2 break evens, which in fact should have been losses, right? And then once, you know, I kind of caught, it wasn't a huge move, but you know, I caught some good profits. I just decided, look, that's good enough. I'll take my profits off the table, right? So I'll just jump to the charts here quickly. CAD JPY. All right, so obviously we've been in this massive uptrend for some time on CAD JPY. In an ideal world on the higher time frames, I wanted to see price make a deeper retracement, right? Kind of back to these levels here, or even some kind of a 50% pullback, right? Maybe confluence of this kind of trend line, if I was to pull a trend line up here, something like that. But the momentum for this week was just pushing higher and higher, right? We were breaking highs. So I just said, you know what? I'll just catch a little piece of the puzzle, a little piece of the pie, sorry. And that came for me on the lower time frames, right? So on the 15-minute time frame. All right, so here, so this is what I didn't have the trend line drawn in, but this is what I was looking at the time. So I'll just draw it in here. So this, connect this low to this low here and just extend it, right? So there we go. So once I had this confluence here, it's the same sort of stuff I look at all the time, right? So confluence of a trend line together with broken highs, right? So in this instance, the ray represents the consolidation highs. We had price broke above, came back, it tested once, came back, tested twice. but the second test is the one that gave that bullish engulfing candle, right? So that's where I entered the trade. And then obviously price just rocketed into profit, right? So if I was to manage this trade as I should, right, I would have waited for that shift in structure, which happened here, right? So we had, so yeah, price made this pulse up, came down, right, made a low, started to make, it made a lower high, made an equal low, made an equal high, made a higher low, made an equal high, and then finally made a lower low, right? So this here would have been my kind of shift in structure area, somewhere around here. So that's where I would have closed the trade off, which would have been similar kind of profits, right? So all right, so I'll just move on to the last trade this week, which was on Euro USD. It was taken on the 4-hour time frame as a long position. It was a bar trade together with confluence of a trend line together with a 618 fib. I just made a note here that I was feeling a little bit anxious about the trade due to missed opportunities in the last few weeks, together with the kind of losses and break-evens that I took earlier on this week. Also, USD Chef and Euro USD set up at the same time, and you know, I didn't want to overexpose myself to the USD, and obviously USD Chef and Euro USD are very heavily correlated, so I didn't want to expose myself to both pairs, so I just kind of had to pick one, and I just picked Euro USD because it just looked a little bit cleaner to me, but I still had that feeling of anxiety entering the trade. All right, this was the trade here at the time that I entered. Cool. So all right, so I traded off of these broken highs here, which was the shift in structure. I was also looking at these highs just here, but which is what I did on analysis, right? So anyway, I'll talk you through once I get to the charts, right? But break, retest, last broken highs together with the trend line, entry confirmation came on that bullish engulfing candle, and you know, I was targeting these previous highs here as first targets, and then further highs for future targets, right? Euro USD. All right, so 4 time frame. All right, cool. So all right, so the analysis that I did, I was looking at these broken highs here, right? So these broken highs just here, I did analysis around this area, and basically what I was saying is, if price continues to push higher, then I'll look for a retest of this level, right? But price didn't actually continue to push higher. Instead, price broke beneath. And I said if price breaks beneath, I'd look to trade off of these highs here, which would be that 61.8, kind of 50% 61.8 retracement level. And that's the trade that actually set up, right? Together with this nice little trend line that was being formed. So, I mean, price, it was kind of hard to live through this trade for a little bit because I was feeling anxious, right? And price, I mean, I entered on this candle here, but price just kept kind of wicking, you know, pushing higher, going into drawdown, pushing higher, going into drawdown, pushing higher, going into drawdown, and it's kind of annoying, right? But eventually we did manage to push higher and push into profit. It didn't quite hit my TP, right? My first TP, which is, it was like 6 pips off on Friday. And I just decided to close half of the position there, right? So I closed half the position here at the end of Friday, because there's no point for me to kind of waste, you know, hold the trade over the weekend, you know, and risk it, right? Anything can happen over the weekend. So I just decided to close some profits there and then leave the rest to run. So stops on break even, and we'll see if it hits these future targets. So yeah. That was pretty much it for the week. I mean, this was a pretty nice trade. I was very happy with it. Apart from the little anxiety that I was feeling, but all in all, I was happy with the trade. I'll just show you USD Chef. So I'll start marking my missed opportunities in purple. All right, so I could just kind of recap them quickly. So yeah, so this one set up just like Euro USD, pretty much. We also had a retest. It's not really a full retest of this broken trend line here. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, price broke beneath, came back as expected in the analysis. Gave that kind of evening star formation, and then my entry reason came just on this candle just here. But I didn't take the trade. I mean, it would have been in some pretty nice profits as well, but you know, you never know what can happen, right? It could have obviously went and continued to push higher and stop me out if I entered it, and I didn't want to expose myself to both Euro USD and USD Chef. So yeah, so that was that trade, and then I also missed Chef JPY, which is another trade I did analysis on last week. All right, so I think I did analysis when price was somewhere around this area. I was saying look for price to kind of pull back into these broken highs, show some rejection, entry confirmation. I mean, it pulled back to the 50% fib, and entry confirmation came on that morning star formation just there. So that would have been my entry, but I wasn't able to trade it. And I mean, first targets would have been hit, so these would have been my first targets just here, and then, you know, final targets kind of around this level there. So I'll just kind of leaving it on my chart to see if it would have played out fully or not. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, I was happy with the trading week in total, right? Wasn't the best trading week ever, but it also wasn't the worst. It came out with some okay profits this week, and still have a position running. I think I closed off the week on, yeah, just about 3.3R, almost 3.4R, which is okay. I'm happy with that. No complaints. So yeah, we'll see how this Euro USD trade plays out, if it actually pushes higher and meets those final targets. Be happy if it does. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the recap. Obviously, if you made it this far through all my waffling, thank you very much. And as usual, if you like what you see and you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe. And if you think these kind of videos would make sense or help anyone else out that's learning to trade or may gain some benefit from the video, just, you know, please feel free to share it with them. Cool. I will wrap up the video now, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the analysis video.